Yeah.
Good afternoon, Shane.
Good afternoon, Lisa. How are you?
How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
I'm really, really good. Really good, except for a few tech issues.
Oh, yeah,
Anyway,
always.
challenges. That's it. So I just want to thank you firstly for jumping on with me. We've had dealings in the past, through coaching and trainings, and so it's always really great to connect with like-minded people firstly, and also people who have been challenged in the same area, I'm going to say, as I have. And that's why I am gathering men in particular to chat to and just talk to you guys about challenges that you've had in the past, because as you do know, a little bit about my history, and my father, brother and grandfather have all suicided. So that's really, or they chose to take their own lives. So that's really a passion of mine to dig deeper, get to the core issues of what's going on. I've started to learn more about the brain. I know they're finding out more and more as time goes on. And there is a stigma. There's still a stigma. So I want to get real and raw with, again, in particular, guys. And let's get our hands dirty of what's really, really going on, and why in this case you think is one of the questions that we'll get to, why we've still got this issue in the here and now, when there's so much money and so much time being invested into mental health or mental well-being, whatever you want to call it, whatever label you want to give it. But that's why I am, again, putting these talks together, interviews, whatever we want to label them with, just to get into your head and find out what your challenges have been in the past, that led you to do and be who you are, that have influenced you to go in the directions you have, how it's impacted the different areas of your life if you feel that you've been challenged with mental health issues, which I've got to say, I don't know anyone that hasn't had a moment in time. It's just whether we recognize it, I believe, and whether we want to label it with whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
100%.
yeah, okay. So far away. Tell me about you. Tell me about, your younger years when you first experienced maybe challenges that you felt like you were depressed, or, just tell me.
Yeah,
Give me your
awesome. And
guts.
thanks, by the way, for the opportunity and having me on and talk about it. Yeah, I really enjoyed talking about it too. And it's funny, like, yeah, I like to see how you explored the different ways that we want to phrase things and say things, like, and it made me think, like, when you said mental health or mental well-being, it's like, what's mental well-being? So being well mentally. um yes, it's absolutely, we can have a state of wellness mentally, but we're not going to be mentally well 100% of the time. And I
Mm,
think if mental well-being is like a goal, then we're going to be extra hard on ourselves when we've got the lulls and the troughs and the downtimes, which are going to
yeah,
happen inevitably.
yeah,
As we know, we can't have the highs without the lows. So
yeah. And
um,
the universe will definitely balance us out.
yeah,
And I mean, yeah, I'm probably jumping ahead here, but I understand now that if we are too polarized, something or someone will come and balance us out. But we sometimes go into that victim mentality where we think, poor me. And for me, definitely in the past and in my childhood, I know that I had those feelings and thoughts. So, I'm so grateful for those opportunities that have led me to where I am, and to, again, be in the place I am to be able to explore this.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It is. It's a really amazing rabbit hole, and the words that we use are so powerful, and it's really important to choose them carefully, and of course not get too sort of caught up in it, and at the same time we kind of want to let the words flow out and then explore how they flow and why we use them and things like that. So, but more to the point of where I've come from and where I am, it's I mean, I experienced I guess the mental issues and the challenges very early on. Like I can remember as young as 9, 10 years old, I was making attempts on my life at that age, and not that I thought they might have ever been successful, but I know at that age I was already like, things were too hard and too much, and it just seemed like the most beneficial route. It seemed like the best route to take at the
Yeah.
time.
So tell me, what were the contributing factors? This is where I want to get raw, and this is where I want you guys to get vulnerable, because I think there's a lot of, from my perception and my observation, a lot of guilt and shame around being honest, open, vulnerable, and raw, because there's that, again, my perception, feeling of judgment. But we know it's more judgment on yourself than from anywhere else. So what were your factors at that time that led you to those thoughts?
There's in hindsight I've got one answer. At the time there's a different answer, right?
Okay, cool. Give me the at the time.
So at the time, and I think, I don't know how many people will admit this, but at the time attention was a factor, right? And trying to prove a point, and trying to shine light on issues. I felt really unheard, not listened to, uncounted, and it was like, what can I do? And this is my 10-year-old self, and
it's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah, it doesn't have to make sense to anyone, but I think it will. But I don't think many people will admit that sometimes it's you're just trying to be seen and be heard. And I think quite often people will make attempts, and they might be a very poor attempt, because in the back of their mind they don't really want to do it, but they do want to be noticed. And that was a big part of it, being completely honest. And in hindsight also, at the time I thought, oh, well, it's because I'm getting bullied from this area. I mean, at school I was pretty fine, but it was different at home or there or here or there. And I was so desperate, and there's no other answer and there's no other way. In hindsight, of course, we can see all the ways and all the different answers and the different things that we could have done, that we didn't see at the time. And in hindsight, I could have stepped up and handled things differently, instead of just hoping that someone else would handle things for me. No one else is handling it. How can I get them to notice me and handle it for me?
And you're right, because it is hindsight, right? But you're that 9-year-old boy or 6-year-old boy or 4-year-old boy who just wants to be seen, heard, and have that attention. And there's nothing wrong with that, and we do know now that everyone is doing the best they can with what they've got, right? We know that consciously, but at an unconscious level, we're not seeing the balance in that moment. We're only and we polarize, seeing that no one's seeing me. But now we know that universal laws, there's nothing ever missing in our life, like it just it's always there. But when you're in that state, and this is where I want to go, this is where I want, in hindsight, that's great, but to be that little person, because that's who we grow up, where the little person is still filling that void, right? Even if you don't, so where else then when we get older is that showing up? And this is when it happens. I know that there's oh gosh, when my dad passed, I worked at the Bureau of Statistics. So I went straight to the records and looked all the stats up, right? So, and then to see the youngest ages, I was like, my mind was blown to see how young some of these people were. And, I was like, but but now understanding so much more about human behavior and about where we've been, and you know, how our triggers and how we program from 0 to 7, and even in the womb, you know, like we're still absorbing that energy around us. So it's all good, but I want to go, because a lot of men and women, don't get me wrong, are just still trapped in that little boy or that little girl, like
well, you know what,
you know, the lost little, you know, little person. And then as we get older, there's that one trigger that sends us back spiraling. But you know, we know now that there's ways to address that. But that little boy, you know, what happened? What happened with that for you? What happened? Like you were, you know, you were lost. You know, what did you do then to get through?
Right. It was about that age. It was shortly after that, or around that time, that I started volunteering at an animal welfare league at a shelter. And again, at the time, you probably don't really understand why you're doing what you're doing, whether you're an adult or a child. You really don't understand at the time. But in hindsight, right, I wanted to go and bring some happiness, and I wanted to see some happiness. And in hindsight, I wanted to see what happy looked like and try and emulate it. So what better way than going and walking a puppy from a shelter?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And I just have to chuck in there, anyone that feels depressed or anything, and I remember reading this years ago, is like, put him in a room full of puppies, and I, you know, like, I'm not sure how depressed they'll be after spending, you know, 5 minutes with it. You know, how can you not? So, but you know, we know more now about the science and stuff, you know, and what leads to that sort of thing. But back then, you know, you don't have that. A lot of little people and big people don't have that knowledge around, you know, we're told now that it's an illness, you know, that if you've got it, you've got it.
Yeah. And I really don't buy into that or believe that. And I think my personal opinion, I think it can be really harmful to try and convince people that they're not going to get away from it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's about getting away from it, but actually confronting it and sort of smoothing it and dealing with it and being okay with it.
Yeah.
Where once you're sort of okay with it, it seems to cancel out anyway, right? Like, I was diagnosed, separate from what we were just talking about. I lost my little brother, and I was diagnosed with PTSD years later. And it was about 9 years after the incident that I was actually able to move through it and neutralize it, and not experience the symptoms anymore. And it completely changed my relationship with my brother, who passed away well after his death. Changed my relationship with him, and it was no longer that negative relationship of the nightmares and the intrusive thoughts and all those PTSD associated symptoms. But instead, every time I envision him and every time I feel him, it's a very positive, encouraging relationship. So it's absolutely powerful, the power of our thoughts and our beliefs. You know, if I was ever told that, and well, I mean, I was told, but if I ever believed that PTSD is incurable and, you know, you'll never get away from it, you'll never move on, you just learn to be stronger and you just learn to deal with it, then I probably never would have changed my relationship with it. I never would have addressed it the way I have. And harness that power and have that amazing relationship that I have with him now.
That's so beautiful. So okay, so you were 9, you felt that you were like suicidal, but you were just lost, is my word for it. And then something led to you. And I think we take a lot away from our intuition, really. You know, that we led to something, because everything is in the way. So you went and you played with the animals, and that clearly gave you like another lease on life. We love to say that, you know.
Absolutely. And I did that for, I'm not even sure how long I did that for. It might have been a year, or it might have been a bit less. And then I moved on to the farm that I ended up growing up on, which was basically a horse riding place, a school where we had, I think there was about 100 horses in the riding school, and then there was another 150 registered there.
Oh my
goodness.
1,000
acres. And
oh my goodness.
Every day that I wasn't at school, I was generally there. And and I was just learning, getting better and better. I started volunteering, just picking up horse droppings in a
Yeah.
wheelbarrow, and I
Yeah.
spent 10-hour days there when I was 10, 11 years old. And eventually I started getting paid a little bit, and then a little bit more, and before you know it, it's been a decade, and I was doing everything. So working and being with horses was another thing that was incredibly therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
And the way that happened was, if you're interacting with a horse, and I think just about any animal, you have to be authentic and you have to be genuine.
Yeah.
Right? You
Yeah.
can't cut corners. I mean, for any traders listening, if you cut a corner on a job, it'll come back and haunt you.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure. And you can't, they're calling bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
because you can't manipulate them with conversation, or like tell them stories, because they're just getting the feels.
Yeah.
We know we're all in energy and information, and you can't reason with an animal, like, because they have an animal brain. Like we have our frontal cortex, which is executive center, and that's the difference between us and them, right? So they work on energy.
Yep. And they'll read your body language, they'll read everything.
Yeah.
And horses, for example, they read your heartbeat. When they're in a herd, their heartbeats all synchronize.
Yeah.
And they know exactly what's going on. And a lot of people will tell you, this is all related to what we're talking about, but a lot of people will tell you to not show fear around these animals and not show fear around horses. And if you're nervous, they'll pick up on it. And so just act tough and act brave. And I call bullshit on that.
Yeah.
If you're scared, right, you're with a prey animal. They know what scared is. They understand. They get it.
Yeah.
They get scared.
Yeah.
So why try and hide it?
Yeah.
It's when you're trying to hide it, that's what makes them worried.
I love it, because you've got to be authentic, right?
Right.
You have to be authentic, which gives them permission. So you're giving each other permission to be authentic. And that's what this is all about, is that we go through life not being authentic, because we don't even know what that means, I reckon, half the time.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Who am I?
Yeah. Well, we spend so long with a mask on.
Yeah.
We forget how to even take it off, or how to act without a mask.
Yeah, and I think this generation coming through now, like the really little people, hopefully there's enough knowledge these days, and we've been through that cycle that that parents are allowing them. Oh, I suppose it's all in balance anyway. Who am I kidding? But I think the ones that I'm surrounding myself, because of the work I've done now, are allowing their children to be authentic, to say, I'm angry, I'm sad, and to cry, where, I believe in my world, our parents didn't know that, because they weren't taught that. So, and so you're just told to shush and silenced, or this or that, which is, and, from then it's just continual suppressing, repressing all your emotions. So you don't even know who you are. And there comes the mask, because you're living under someone else's values, someone else's rules, someone else's perception of the world. So we
don't have a choice. Like from when we're babies and toddlers and children, we've got no idea. Like, if we were born on a different planet, that would be normal.
Yes.
Right? Everything else would be normal to us, but we're born here, and we need to understand how things work, how's the sky and the grass, and how people work, and how to handle emotions. When we're born, we've got no word for angry, no word for sad. You have no idea what it is. It's just
that's right.
same sensation. So we've got no choice but to adopt someone else's view of the world.
Yes.
And it's not until we start to grow up and get out of that we start to question things.
Yeah.
And we got to try and rewrite it, and that's a hard part of growing up.
Yeah.
On top of the stresses of career or school, or where you're at. It can be an absolute challenge. And so finding yourself again, right? And that's a journey that's very a bit of a roller coaster, and where you can kind of find yourself, and then you lose yourself, and then you find yourself, and you lose yourself, right?
Leveling up.
The
ceiling. Yeah.
Like I've even found I had a bit of time recently where I guess I had found myself, and I was, in my power, and I was feeling me, and wasn't a mask. I didn't need to pretend, and I was feeling really good, and I was very powerful, right? I was very effective, powerful, masculine, and of course the universe will throw things at you, and it's like, no, there's a little bit more that's not quite me, and so that would get highlighted, and then I'd become very ineffective again. I'll lose that mongrel, and then I'm like, oh man, what is going on? And then you get like, I had it, and then just frustrated, and I think most people will be able to relate to that, right? And it's just now, like, I've got it back again.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm not going to lose it again.
Yeah,
but it's just as long as I take the learning and grow each time, and don't get stuck in that one loop back here.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. But that's where we spend a lot of time doing the work on ourselves, like, and that is like just understanding the challenges to like understand that that's an opportunity to grow. That, when you're younger and you're in that cycle and you're in that world where your parents don't know, it's just like, you're in the grind and you're just part of that, I don't know, that whirlwind. It's like, and you have a belief system. So until you break free of the old belief system, or break free of the family unit to be able to see different things, it's like, get out of that box, basically. So tell me, I want to go back to how old were you when so you were challenged with all that stuff when you were younger, but how old were you when your brother died?
I was 20.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
so I'm 34 now.
Okay. Oh, you old thing, you. Okay, you were 20. Yeah. And I mean, how did you navigate being a teenager and stuff? Did you find that you were in and out of, challenging, how did you go with your mental state?
That was a challenging time, of course.
Yeah.
I was very lucky to have those horses there, and I could have taken very easily different paths in life.
Yeah.
I had a circle of friends here and a circle of friends there, right? I was in Southwest Sydney in some pretty rough areas. There was plenty of fighting, partying, bikies, like, you name it.
Yeah, my partner's from the Riff. He's from Penrith.
So I had circles of friends in there where I'd hang out, but I also had a circle of friends at the horse riding and rodeos and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There was a lot of tradies at that farm that would keep their horse there because it was on the outskirts of Sydney. So
yeah,
I had the city there, I had the country there. I remember one of the hills on the 1,000 acres. I would ride up to the top and I'd look out to the left and I'd see nothing but paddocks, bush, nature. You look out to the right and you could see in the distance, you could see the Centrepoint Tower of Sydney.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
So I really could have gone either way. And I was so, I don't want to say lucky, but I was so grateful to be able to see both sides of it, right?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Both sides. You're getting to see both sides already.
It wasn't like I only had one option. And I think, I can't say absolutely everyone, but I do believe that the vast majority of almost everyone, I think everyone has options.
I believe that too. We have options, and we have people say, oh, we don't have a choice. We always have a choice. It's just whether we choose to see the choices.
Yeah.
And sometimes some of the choices that we have seem a little bit more difficult. So when we say, I haven't got a choice, it's normally that we're opting for the easy way out.
Yeah, absolutely. And often when we say we don't have a choice, people might start not pitying us, but caring for us or feeling sorry or giving us a hug, and or we get the attention or things like that. Like, I guess I was lucky or grateful in the way that my options and the fact that I had a choice was so clear I couldn't ignore it and I couldn't pretend that I didn't.
I love that. It's like a really cool metaphor thing. You're at the top of the mountain and
I can still picture myself there, and I can still see exactly what both sides look like.
It's so cool. It's so cool. I can feel it. Yeah, that's so good. And you said that you were like you were surrounded by a fair few tradies.
Yeah.
You know, like what was your perception? Because you're a tradie.
Yeah, I'm a diesel mechanic.
Yeah. So what was your perception around, you know, their mental states and, you know, now that you have time to reflect, and even when you were there, like what was your perception? Because you're very observant. You know, yeah, and I know that you would have been getting it then, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, you just do.
I
But it's
was
whether
always
you
an
want to
observer.
recognize.
Yeah,
Sorry?
I've always been a watcher and observer,
Yeah, the observer. Yeah, yeah.
you know, study what's going on around me and that.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I did get to that was, I guess that's another point where I got to see two sides, because when I was 13, 14, I was starting to take me out on jobs, you know, telling people I was 16 and I was an apprentice, but I was just laboring for them when I was 14 and getting paid like, I think $70 a day, which was like awesome for me. I'd be
Wow.
like
But
shoveling in the
yeah,
sun
yeah.
all day, and you know,
Yeah.
I would do a man's day of work,
Mm,
and it got me fit and it got my work ethic, and it was really good for me. Um, but when I saw them on the farm with their
mm,
horses,
mm.
and going for rides and stuff, I saw one side of them, and then out on the job sites, I'd see another side of them,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
in many different ways.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Absolutely. So, and that's been highlighted again for me now, because I've just spent a number of months doing youth work,
Yeah.
out of my trade, and I've just gone back into my trade,
Yeah.
and I see such a stark difference in the mindset of people on
Yeah.
site versus off site. And
Mm.
it's like we get on site, and so we're in a community of predominantly men,
Yeah.
and so these masculine communities, we have a tendency to build each other up in a way that is not always a healthy, great way to do it,
Mm.
um, and not always an effective way to do it.
Mm.
And it looks like tearing each other down,
Mm.
right? So if you know what I'm getting at, um, we don't let each other become dependent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And that can come across to some people as not caring about each other's mental health,
Yes. Yeah. But
right?
do you
Because,
think there's an aspect, and I totally get where you're going with this, because it's the challenge that creates the growth. You know, like
yeah.
we go back in our
And as
game, we go
masculines, we
to
challenge each other.
yeah, yeah, and that's where your personal growth is. Yet I from what I've seen happen, and this happened with my dad, is that he was in the workplace and he was mentally challenged for a very long time. But it was like the straw that broke the camel's back for the final time, was he was being bullied in the workplace. And look, I know bullying's a label. I don't get right into labels, but that's just for our, you know, our chat. We're going to
Yeah.
use that because it's like he was being verbally criticized, he was being teased, they were setting him up to fail pretty much, because they actually enjoyed seeing him lose his cool.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
so common. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Everywhere I've been, it's like a fun game to watch people lose their cool and
yeah.
see if you can poke them enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a 46-year-old man. No, yeah, anyway, 47. He was 47 when he's died. And so I believe from my recollection, he left, and then he went so downhill that he couldn't face anyone or anything. He tried to work from home by himself. He was so clever, so clever with his hands and everything. But yeah, but what happened with him, I believe, I'm not him, he's not here to share with me, but my feels are that, you know, that triggered, there was always those triggers from his childhood.
Yeah.
You know, and then and if you don't have the tools and the people around you don't know how to support you, which is really, really common even now. You know, I know there's a lot out there. I know I'm going a bit off track, but totally on track.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes we can over support and
Yes.
we enable
Or over
people,
challenge.
yeah, enable people to be unable to actually get back on their feet.
Yeah.
You know, because we think, oh, we can't challenge. Yeah. So it's this real seesaw, isn't it? And, you know, for him, he totally couldn't get back on his feet. And we had some really real and raw conversations when he was in an institute just before he passed. But yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And
So
like
yeah.
we often forget the support part of it.
Mm,
And look, again, so me personally, I really don't like most of the approach that I see towards mental health in the blue collar workplace.
yeah, yeah.
I think a lot of it is a feminine perspective, which is okay for a feminine workplace or person or that, right?
So
Where we sort of want to talk about it and get it out and
okay.
explore it,
I was going
right?
to say, can you share that because you're in the guts of it, you
Yeah,
know? So like, yeah, and that's what I want to know. I want to
yeah,
know what we can do, to get it right, to try and get it. We're never going to get it totally right. I get that
yeah,
because we're all different with all different issues. But you know, what are we doing wrong, or what are we not addressing? I should say.
yeah. Like every mental health intervention and speaker that I've seen come to any work site or workplace that I've been at, they
Yeah,
come in and they encourage us to just grab each other, pull each other aside, and say, "Are you okay? Do you want to talk about anything?"
yeah,
Um, you know, qualified or not, let's just pull someone aside and encourage them to talk about any problems they have.
yeah,
And it's all very well intentioned. And for some people, it'll work. And I think for, you know, a group of feminine people, let's just say women, um, that'll really work because they tend to love the support and the interaction and the connection and just to get it all out and speak about it.
yeah,
And us men, I've never seen a group of men really, I've seen them try to do that, but I've
yeah,
never seen it flow and become effective.
yeah,
What I have seen is I have seen small groups of men get together, talk about a problem, offer solutions, and give each other a pat on the back and the odd, like, you know, I feel you, mate. Like, I get it. It's cool. And it's all right. And to be like that, but they don't sit there and explore it all. We tackle it as a problem. And it is, I think, really important to lead by example, right? Because as men, we tend to enjoy leading and being leaders. So
mm,
lead by example and speak about what's going on. You don't have to go into the whole explore it and unpack it and look at every detail in every corner and all that sort of thing. You don't have to do that.
yeah,
Like, let's talk about it and get together and see if we can work out some solutions and find the common ground.
yeah, yeah,
Right. And just remember that, as we said before, challenge and support are both very important, and you can overdo both. And I
yeah,
think
yeah,
right now
yeah,
we tend to overdo the challenging in our male workplace,
yeah,
and we do underdo support. And perhaps that is why most of the intervention going on now, and the mainstream intervention, is
mm,
really trying to drive home support each other, support each other, support each other.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? Maybe that's trying to balance the over challenging that I think is going on.
Mm. So
So
what I,
when we
yeah,
have an apprentice,
hmm,
right, and he's doing the wrong thing, or he's being lazy, or he's not thinking about it, we challenge the shit out of him, right?
yeah, yeah,
But we also support him in offering solutions and offering a better
yes,
way to do it
yeah,
and leading by example.
yeah, 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 totally.
Right?
Yeah, I see that. I think from having conversations with people in the past, or guys in particular in the past that have been on like job sites and stuff, it's like when you're really on point, it's like you're right, lead by example, but also rather than, you know, getting too hot around a situation, it's offering the solutions. How about this? Would that work better, mate? You know, rather than,
Yeah.
you know, fully, because, you know, we also know that even nothing is imperfect. Everything is perfect in every moment. So we can work around things, but you've got to know the people to go to be able to help you work around those things, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a solution to it all. But I feel like that's a big thing. But if someone's, having a bad, this is a big thing. If someone's having a bad day, got the shits with their missus, the kids are being little shits, whatever, gone to work, then some dickhead's done this, and then he loses his shit because, and then he's got his boss up his backside, like, so there's this compounding thing, and everyone's getting projected at, but it wasn't even anyone that the projection is going towards that started this, or, it's all this. How do we address that?
Yeah, that's a really good example. So I've seen that so much. It's so common. I'm FIFO, and the swing that I've just come off, we saw it, right? And so often there'll be one guy, usually it's one guy at a time for some reason, who just seems to be really grouchy this week, and he's just snappy at everyone, right? And I have noticed sometimes they won't tell you why. They're just being snappy, and everyone's left to assume, and everyone takes it personally, and then it just escalates and escalates, right? But sometimes people will come in and say, my dog died yesterday, and that's really pissed me off. You don't have to get all talking about every feeling and talking all that. You just have to say, I've got the shits. My dog died. This is fucked. Yeah. And, honestly, like you might not expect it, but blokes would be like, oh man, yeah, that sucks. I can relate to that. And then for the rest of the week, while you're a bit extra touchy or snappy, people get it. And they're like, it's cool. And as men, we tend to wear things, right? We tend to carry things and hold it because we're so geared towards being the protector and taking the brunt and sacrifice. Yeah. And we'll do that for each other, not just our partners, but we do it.
Yeah.
So when he's pissed off, right? Because even for our partners, you probably know the analogy of we tend to be the bowl where our partners, our missus will just like unload into us, and we can take it on as men and just carry it and then just dump it on the side for her. And we'll do that for each other in the workplace. Like he's having a bad day, he's having a bad week, his dog died, whatever's going on. And so I'm now not going to take his shit personally.
Yeah, but if he doesn't share that the dog died, and because of the dog dying, I had a blue with my missus, and I'm stressed out because of A, B, C, and D, and I come to work and then someone says something and I snap. How do you address that? How do you make that person feel safe? Because when someone projects, then like that person, that's just the example, an analogy, and then projects everyone, you're all fuckwits, get out of my way, whatever. I've been on the sites, I know how it goes. How do you bring them back? Because so many other people can then be triggered because that's what their dad did to them, and that made them feel like a small little boy, and don't you dare do that to me, and how dare you, blah blah, I know we've both seen that.
We are responsible for our own triggers and our own behavior.
Yeah, but if you don't know this stuff, if you don't have any knowledge around why your mind works like it does, and that trigger is from my dad, reprimanding me for something what I thought wasn't worth reprimanding when I was 7 or 8 or 12 or whatever. How do we? This is where the thing is, right? This is
And I think this is where the balance is of, okay, we're not going to take it personally because we know it's not a personal attack, even though it might sound like it. So, okay, we're not going to attack him back, right? But can we overdo that by just letting him get away with it? And he'll essentially feel very unsafe, or like he's falling because he's just unleashed on you or snapped at you a bit. You didn't really react, you just got on with it, and now he's left with, oh shit, what does he think of me? What have I done?
And then
he
that's
does that 10 times throughout the day
again, so isn't it?
That's really overdoing it in that direction. So when we find the balance by saying, hold on mate, like that's not okay, I get it, it's cool, I'm not taking it personally, I understand you're having a hard time, let's just rein it back a bit.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So
And
you've addressed it, you've
yeah,
still shown empathy for him,
yeah,
and you've let him know that it's valid and it's okay, but you're also not going to accept him being shit
yeah, for
and
sure.
say, you know what, mate, you're going to have to address what's going on.
Yeah, my son, the other day, he showed up at work, and I don't know whether he parked in the incorrect spot, but the streets in Canberra are very wide anyway, so he's probably in someone's way, but whatever. So the foreman of the job just went off his brain at him and started yelling and carrying on. And so normally, way in the past, he would have taken it personal, would have got angry and either yelled at him. There would be different scenarios. He could have yelled back, and there could have been a big, like screaming match between the two of them, or he could have walked away and then bottled that up. But he actually said, "What, you having a bad morning, mate?" And the foreman said, "Actually, yeah, I am." And he goes, "Yeah, cool." And Jake walked away, and I said, and then later on, the guy came over and said, "I'm really sorry about that, mate." And Jake said, "Yeah, cool, whatever." And Jake still had a little, like, but the fact is that I believe exactly what you were just saying, like calling him, but not degrading, not,
Yeah.
minimalizing or him or anything, but just going, what, are you having a bad morning? Because that then could help that guy go, wow, I'm actually not even pissed off with where you parked.
Yeah.
It's like what happened at breakfast, or what happened in the meeting before I got to the job site, or blah, blah,
100%.
because,
And I think it
yeah,
comes back to what we were talking about, because we are still animals, right? And we still
yeah.
have the animalistic part of
Oh,
our brain.
yes.
So we need to be authentic with animals. And when someone is in their animalistic brain, we need to be authentic with them too.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we're not being authentic, it puts a horse into a state of fear. And when someone is in their animalistic brain, all right, so to sort of clarify that, they're in fight or flight, they're in,
Yep.
which comes out as just outbursts, being snappy, right?
Yep.
If we're not being authentic with them, it's going to trigger a fear.
Yeah.
And like I said before, what do they actually think of me? What's going on? Something's not right. So
Yeah.
it's just going to
Yeah.
send them further into that state. But if we can just be authentic,
Yeah.
and
And
people don't realize how powerful and perfect their authentic self is. You'll
oh,
come
yeah.
up with the right words. You'll come up with the right thing to say if you just go, drop all the shit, drop the charade, drop the macho mask, and just be me. It doesn't make you feminine. You're not going to act feminine because you are a masculine person, and you're going to come out with the right thing. You're going to come out with exactly what youth might want to hear, right? That's your
Yeah.
empathy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because that little child comes, that wounded little child comes out, and I think that's it. I just want to. I've been thinking about, all of this sort of stuff, and we, the DV stuff, and all these things we label. And when a couple of weeks ago, I had to think about this, and it's like same. These people, and not only men that have do this stuff. Again, it's like this compounding thing. Something's happened early on, and it's never been dealt with, and it's just layer after layer after layer. And then I abuse my missus, and then I feel guilty about that, but I don't know how to say sorry. And then I beat myself up, and then I'm angry, so then I take it out again on her or someone else even more. And it's just this, and then I'm beating myself up again or down, and so this is, and then you finally explode. And whatever that explosion looks like, I'm not saying it's okay at all, but there's reasons why it happens. And that's why I think being able to have these conversations and going, let's get real, let's get authentic, but let's get gutsy, let's start to talk about the thing. Well, you're saying you don't really want to talk about certain things, but let's open up the conversation to see where it can go. And it doesn't have to go deep. It can go wherever, and wherever it goes is perfect. But yeah.
And I think I like the analogies there of when we cut corners on a job,
Yeah.
I see the cutting the corner as like suppressing and pushing it down, and just it's easier if I just quickly do this and get past it. It comes back to
Yes.
haunt you.
Yes.
And I think a lot of
Yeah.
people, if they've cut a corner in a window frame or whatever job we're doing, we try and patch it up later when it
Yeah.
pops up. Let's just put
Yeah.
a patch on it. Let's just put a weld on it.
Yes.
It'll come back again later.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you'll patch it again, and it'll come back again later until it gets so
Yes.
bad that it's cracked the foundation, and that whole wall falls. That's the explosion.
That's the explosion. Absolutely. And this is, and there's not going to be a shoe fits all ever, because we've all had so many different experiences. And I think a lot of people, from what I've observed, unless you've done certain types of work, think that there should be, because mental illness or your mental welfare is all the same. Like, you're depressed, so that must mean you're same. It's like saying, I know how you feel. Well, I don't know how you feel because I'm not you. You've had a brother that's passed. I've had a brother that's passed, but I don't know how you feel.
No.
And you don't know how I feel. And yeah, so there's never going to be a one size, one shoe that fits all. And I feel like someone said to me the other day, someone not from our world, but our world, as in looking at things from outside the box, said, and I totally agree with him. So for all those people out there that, are going to be challenged by this, okay. I think it's great for awareness that we have these days for mental health or mental well-being or whatever, are you okay, and all that sort of thing. But he said quite openly to me, I believe it's all bullshit. Now I'm sort of there, like, it's because have we got so wound up in being politically correct we can't be real about the shit that's going down, yeah. So and what I also think too is that, are you going to ask someone if they're okay if you're going through your own shit? And if you said, nah, man, I'm really struggling, it's like, whoa, all the courses,
now we have to talk.
like, okay, I don't know, let's try and get you some help. I don't know,
yeah.
I don't know. So I'm challenged with that. I'm challenged with that because even I'm a mental health first aid facilitator. Well, I did the training facilitator, and I thought I was doing that to be able to make a difference, but there were so many things that I was challenged with in that because of what I do know about, changing your perception. And that's what it's about, changing your perception, right? There's no wrong or right. There's no good or bad. And when you bring the unconscious to the conscious and see the side of whatever that experience was and see both sides, that's when the charge dissipates.
Yeah.
But we're not taught that. It's even now, not so long ago, I listened to the podcast. It's known now that, the whole depression thing in the 70s is all about the pharmaceutical, companies, etc. And it's been brought to the forefront now. Like, yeah. It's an actual thing. Like, a lot of people thought it, knew it, whatever, but now it's actually a thing. So that's another thing, because they rely on people being depressed and handing out band-aids. And I was on antidepressants for a very long time, and they have their place in society. But I do know when my brother suicided, I was on them, and he and I said, these aren't working anymore, I need different ones. So I tried 3 or 4 different ones after that. The fact of the matter is I was feeling, and I didn't want to feel. So I thought the tablets weren't working. So, that's, and they were obliging, well, we can't have you feel, for God's sake, because that's not part of life, But anyway, I mean, I'm going on a bit of a tangent, I know, but I feel like it's still very relevant. But about how we overcome this stuff.
One thing you said there really stood out to me, and I want to call people out using what you said. And you said, you and I, we know about collapsing charges and handling our emotions and perceptions and feelings that way, and how it can neutralize and help us move forward and that. And you said that we're not taught that, right? A lot of people walk around saying, I was never taught this, I was never taught that, and they won't go and learn it.
Yeah.
Right. You're aware, I'm not talking to you,
Lisa,
but you're aware that you weren't taught something. So are you going to hold on to that and walk around and say, well, I was never taught, right? Or are you going to say, I want to learn it? How about you say, I never learned that, I'm going to learn it.
Yeah.
Like, we're not blaming someone else for not teaching you something. Okay, you get out of your apprenticeship and you're still learning.
Yeah.
You can't go through your whole career and say, well, I was never taught that as an apprentice, so I'm just not going to do it.
But how many people are like that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's why, there can't be, maybe there can, just one approach to what we're trying to get out there, yeah.
Yeah. Like I say,
knowledge is power. And every
something
day
resonates, get out there and learn it. Like us, get in contact with the person, get in contact with you or me or someone and say, how do I learn about that? I know in Australia we have this tall poppy syndrome, right, where we can't stand out from the herd or we get pulled back down. Like, so what? Try and pull me back down.
Because everything serves us. Everything serves us as much as it doesn't, So
and I think the best way that we can each other in the workplace, in our home, in our friend circle, is by being the example. Because when you have the same excuses or you have the same reasons as your mate to not do something, but you still do it, he's no longer got that reason or excuse not to do it. Right? I can't do it because my missus is a ball and chain and won't let me go and do it. But you find a way and do it anyway. Right? You'll deal with the shit, and then your missus will be, in the long run, very appreciative that you went and did that and grew, because now she's got a man who will contend with her and a man who she feels protected by and she admires and respects. And all of a sudden your mate doesn't have the same excuse because, you know what, my missus was the same and I did it.
Because from a woman's perspective, we want to feel safe. We want someone to be able to, we want to know, from my perspective, I want to know a man's going to look after me when I need it. But I also don't want to be disabled to not be who I am because of their perception of what I should be. So it's like knowing who I am, but also knowing that I'm safe in the cave, looking after the babies and the food and, but also knowing my capabilities as well and not being,
As men, I believe as we get more confident in our capability to look after, protect and provide and be there for our woman, as we get more confident in our own capability, we have less of an inclination to change her.
Yes, because you are being authentic, not trying to control, and that's that nurturing too, like nurturing, like we do we ideally do our children, to nurture them to be able to become the best version of them, but I'll always go back to knowledge is power. And it's changing all the time, right? What they thought was right 20 years ago has changed. So let's not stay there in those old thought patterns and beliefs and stuff, which we, it's still our schooling and all that sort of thing. Nothing's really changed much, we could go down 10 different rabbit holes right there, but I want to come back. I want to come back because I love where we've gone. So powerful. I want to come back to you. When your brother died, you said, no doubt that is an incredibly life-changing thing that happened. We don't have to go into what happened. He passed. How did you deal with that? What were you going through? Were you at a really low point then? How did that impact your life in all areas?
It was huge, and this is great because it's going to have some examples of what we've talked about. I became very, very angry.
Yeah.
I didn't know why. I didn't have the knowledge I have now, right? So I didn't have the power that I have now, because knowledge is power. I was essentially just getting pinballed around my life, blaming myself because I felt very responsible for what happened. And so just for some context, it was a four-wheel drive rollover accident. I wasn't directly involved in the accident, but I didn't really want to allow him to go with that driver, but I did. He was my responsibility on that trip. I was 20, he was 13. He was away with me.
Were you in the car?
Sorry?
Were you in the car? I can't remember. No, you weren't.
No, so I turned up about 2 hours after it happened to the scene. But I wasn't directly involved in the accident. I was meeting him somewhere. And just before the meeting, it happened in a paddock. And I just sort of turned up and they said, you can't go any further, someone's died, and end up putting two and two together. And I just took off and raced ahead because I didn't know whether, from what they were saying, I couldn't tell whether he was alive or dead, or he was dying. So I charged ahead. But I had to identify the body, for that sort of thing, and that was a whole thing. But I was really numbed out at first. Instead of crying, I kind of just sat there and I would just stare at a wall for a long time. And just like waiting to wake up from a nightmare. Just trying to come to terms with what happened. And so that was a really tough time. And then arriving home was really, really hard because of the guilt and responsibility I felt. Stepping in the door and having to look at people's eyes and sort of wear that. I remember the first time I just went down the road to the shops afterwards, and I noticed everyone just getting about their life, because obviously they didn't even know him or know what happened or anything. And I was really angry with people for just getting on with their lives and not even knowing about it. And it's funny when you lose someone, you start to appreciate all of the great points and the things about them that you didn't take the time to look at before. It's like, does the world realize what they've lost? Right? And when we talk about the world, we're talking about our own world.
Our own reality. Absolutely. And again, we do know better, because nothing's ever lost. But when you're going through that, you're experiencing that, and you don't know this stuff. Even when you do know it, there's a process.
And it's important to go through that process. And even if you know better, or even if someone's trying to tell you, like, that's a bit ridiculous, it doesn't matter how ridiculous it is. It's just another step in what you're going through. So take every step. Don't skip steps. Don't upstairs 2 steps at a time like I do. In the metaphorical steps, we step on each one, and we hold the handrails and we do it properly. Because you don't want to trip on that staircase. So I went back to work about 2 or 3 weeks later when my leave had run out. People at work were aware of what happened. So they were quite good in the way that they didn't bring it up, but they also didn't tiptoe around me. They just kind of let me handle it however I wanted to. If I did bring it up, they would stand there and listen. I didn't want to put position too much, right? Because it's like, that people don't know what to say. That it makes them uncomfortable. So I was trying not to sort of do that. And there was a couple of guys who sort of asked a question and they were sensitive about it, and that was really good. But in general, again, the fact that they knew what had happened meant that they had the space for me to be snappy and angry. and, take it out a bit on them here and there. And, my boss was able to pull me in and say, let's get you some help. Let's do something, because he was aware of what happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Did you take the help?
Yeah, I did take the help. And to be honest, like, it was, company approved appointed
Yeah.
help. And I was like, I just sat in a room and talked about it for a bit. And the feedback was that I was better. So this is actually really interesting. Like, I didn't take it too seriously or think it was very effective or that, but the feedback was that I wasn't quite as angry.
Ah.
So even though I didn't notice it, other people did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah, because we're so in it, right? We're so in it.
yeah. Yeah. And in
Yeah.
hindsight, it was probably just the fact that people took the time and the resources to help me. And one thing I will say in my experience is people don't know what to say. They don't know how to act. They don't know what to do. And there is nothing to do or act or say, but just letting someone know
Yeah.
that you're thinking about them, that you're available, it makes all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be, it can make the difference to know that, that you have a safe space.
Yeah. Yep. That you're not just being shunned,
Yeah.
and you're not just
Not being
expected
forced.
to get over it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you just, you feel like it's like being, what came to me, it's just like being in the womb. You just, you're being held, whatever that looks like to you.
Yeah.
You just feel safe to do and act and be who you need to be in whatever moment it is. And not have to be anything for anyone. Sorry?
I was saying this brings up something really good.
Yep, go.
And the fact that as men, we really value being respected.
Yeah.
But we really value being seen as capable.
Yeah.
And so if you're always rushing to someone to try and a man to try and help them and support them in that, we take it very differently to what women do. And again, the mainstream idea that we need to rush in and support people and give them help is very feminine, I believe. And for the masculine,
of course,
we want to show them that we have faith, that we have space for them, and we're happy to chat and we're happy to talk, but we also have faith in them and their capability. So space for me in that workplace, it was perfect, because people weren't rushing to help me.
Yeah.
They respected my own ability, but they were also available and had space.
Yeah. And it's the thing is, I'm just mine's going to a woman who is in a very masculine space, and she's been through some massive challenges, and she won't let anyone in. Won't. Even though I believe she knows that there's a safe space, because this is just my perception, if she becomes vulnerable, then she's not going to be able to continue doing what she does for a job. And she, and be able to manipulate her space. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense? She's a company owner, so I believe she's not going to, again, my belief, that she won't allow herself to be vulnerable, because if she just lets that guard down, she's not going to be able to stay in the same space she's in, which is giving her life.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, I understand it. I'm not sure everyone does, but I understand.
So that if she becomes too in her feminine and feels and opens up, then she's not going to be able to stay in that world that she believes is giving her the safety of her home and her surroundings.
And what do you believe would happen was to stick with that story and continue down that?
For her?
Would she lose it? Would she lose what she's trying not to lose?
Would she? No, I don't believe she would, but I believe she believes she would.
Yeah. So, I mean, if she was to stick with that closed off, guarded persona and not address what's going on, and yeah, we're speaking very generally without knowing the personal issue of that.
Yeah.
But it's still very relevant. You know, if she was to hold on to whatever shit she's going through, I mean, it's like cutting the corner and catching it and burying it. It's going to, what's it going to explode? What's it going to affect?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I already seen different areas of her life, the impacts, but to me, that is just a lot of business owners and in that masculine space, right? Because she's in a really masculine space and she's amazing, beautiful. But even her partner said, you need to talk to your mate, you know, we can just give them the safe womb space to come to when and if they need it, but we can't force anyone. And this is the thing, isn't it?
Yep.
You know, it's just yeah. And this is the tricky bit of it, right? This is why I want to do this, is because, like, let's work out what we need to address to be able to, because it's not one thing's going to fit. So what do we have to put in place? You know, what can we, you know, for guys to, is it just that? But how are we going to get the guys then to reach out? I know a lot of companies, I know I'm a bit everywhere, but a lot of companies have you'll know what it is, where they've got someone on call 24/7 that you can ring, counselors, whatever.
Yeah, like an EAP, like an employee
That's the
assistance
one.
program.
Yeah, that's the one. And I believe that less than 3% gets used of that resources. You know, it's something, whether that's worded right, but you know what I mean. Like, basically no one reaches out.
Yeah. And, you know, to be perfectly honest, like I have, probably over 10 years ago now, I tried to reach out to one.
Yeah.
And I think because it's hardly used, it's very rusty.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like the moving parts don't mesh, and
It's ticking.
like, this is too hard.
Is it like ticking the boxes?
Well,
They're ticking the boxes.
I wish it was, because it's
well,
like
sorry,
there's no boxes to tick. There's no pen. It's like, what do we do? And I think it's like here's an EAP, here's an employee assistance program, and this is just my experience with this company.
Yep, perfect.
Like, okay, I want to use it. Oh shit.
Yeah. Because it's because I do know someone that's got a company that does that, and they rely on you not reaching out because they're making money for nothing, right?
Yeah, and it's like, are they just ticking the box of we have to have an EAP?
That's what I mean. Yeah,
right,
that's what I mean. Yeah, sorry, I didn't quite get that across properly, but yes, that's what I mean. Is they're ticking the boxes, because there's a lot of people that are there's as many as not, I get it, that are entitled and feel entitled because, you know, if they don't have those things in place, then we can, you know, they're not ticking the boxes. But what boxes are we not ticking as individuals, you know, that are playing their part? I worked for a big company full of guys. This is my thing, right? I want to get into businesses and help, you know, sort this out. I think the biggest thing is to let them all know that they are worthy of being heard and seen. Because when we did our interviews, that was the biggest thing for them. They felt heard and seen, right? Because we did individual. And I know, where am I going with this? I know a lot of companies have toolbox meetings and all that sort of thing. Do they work? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's, you know, knowing, as you know, statistics, there has to be somewhere where it's working for someone.
Yes, of course. Yes. So as many, it's working for as many as it's not. But like, what else in those big companies can we do? And you're in one now, that is going to help. that is, well, help assist, open the doors that guys feel safe to be able to, and to be able to get vulnerable? Is it that we need to give the leaders more exposure to what we know?
I think I still come back to being the example and leading as example and doing it that way. So if we can find people who, tradies, like if there's any tradies who have a story, who didn't succumb to the excuses and actually said, no, I'm going to find a way and I'm going to get this done and I'm going to see it through to the end and I'm going to get better and heal. On those guys, I would really want for them to get around to the workplaces, whether it's within your company or whether you start your own thing and get around to all different companies and actually be there and say, I was on the tools. So you can speak the language, you can relate, and you can just tell your own authentic story and say, this is what I experienced. This is the hard part. This is the ridicule I got. This is the ridicule I thought I was going to get and I didn't. But at the end of the day, I didn't succumb to the excuses of the company doesn't really care. The EAP doesn't really work. The intervention and mainstream stuff doesn't really work. Despite all that, I decided to not use those excuses, go ahead, find a way, reach out to people and just not stop until I got the healing, until I got it done and I solved the problems, right? Let's get around and tell those stories.
Yeah. And what do you think the leaders, like the management, could do to make that better? Like, you're saying example, if you can get someone to do that, or maybe that's unrealistic in specific areas. I mean, and that'd be great if we had enough resources to be able to get people to do that, or for companies to step up and want to pay someone for that, because we've still got to live, right, and it's quite expensive at the moment. Between groceries, mortgage increases, blah blah. So it'd be in a perfect world. So what are we going to do when it comes to management? Because we're saying lead by example, right? And I'm all for it, right? I'm all for it. It's from the top down. I don't care. People say, oh no, it's sometimes, we know that some people say that, but I believe it is from the top down. It's like a parent. Kids we're manipulating them, molding them, and manipulate in the word that it's really supposed to be. It's not like bad. We manipulate Play-Doh, right, to make what you want. So we mold things, people, like for me, I believe it has to start there. We need maybe more open-minded leaders that are willing to put the resources in, not just tick a box.
Yeah, absolutely. And
because I've got an EAP or whatever they're called. I don't know, not just that, yeah.
We're willing to invest in their employees, right?
Yeah.
No matter who you've got in your team, there's going to be mental challenges, issues, struggles. And even if you've got perfectly healthy appearing individuals, shit's going to catch up with them at some point.
Yeah.
Let's arm them with the correct tools to address their mental health. Now, for managers and business owners and that, yes, your job is to drive profits. A CEO is legally obliged to drive profits, maximize profits for the shareholders.
Yeah.
Which can be tricky. Employees are only going to perform as well as their minds allow.
Yeah.
Right. I know OHS and safety statistics and that is a massive thing. Like, I think I was told recently that a simple hand injury on a job can cost like $250,000. Like, it's a huge thing. And when people are distracted, right, when their mind's somewhere else, when they're just kicking pebbles and they're just got the shits with the world, that's when accidents happen.
Yeah.
Okay. And not only that, when you've got happy employees, driven employees, people who know their values, know their worth, and they've got goals and things like that, and they're very healthy in that manner, those employees are unstoppable.
Yeah.
They will be autonomous. They will come up with a problem and they'll get excited about solving it instead of just going to the supervisor and saying, my shoelace come undone, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's a
and
real...
you're right, and they're cutting the corners, because I'm so not here in the moment because I hate my life, I hate my job. It's shit, no one cares what I do, I've got a meaningless job, blah blah blah.
And
Yeah,
it's self-preservation, right? If you're like 95% loaded in your capacity because your dog died and your missus is got the shits with you and the kids are playing up, and you're feeling bullied, you feel like you've got no friends, and then a problem comes up at work, like a door jam's crooked.
Yeah.
Fuck, you're not going to stop and redo that. Let's just shave the door and make it work and move on and cut the corner.
Yeah.
Because you're already so freaking loaded up.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So
you can't just blame you can blame the employees all you want, but that's not going to solve your problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really starts at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that awareness.
I think knowledge is power, like you say, and so is responsibility. Like the more we shirk responsibility to someone else, we shirk power to them too.
Yeah.
Right. So it's up to, if you're an employee, take responsibility. If you're an employer, take responsibility.
Yeah.
Just take it however you can. And the more people that take it, the more powerful we become.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's face it, yeah, we all want to be seen and heard. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to be...
And understood. And I think I'm just going to throw in there, because for those who are going to watch this and wherever it goes and whoever sees it, we're all about values.
Yeah.
But we're not talking values as in social idealisms, because they're, I'm just going to put it out there, unrealistic. Because, I hear the whole, I want to be, love honesty and happiness, and I want to do that, well, that's go for gold, but it's unrealistic because that's polarized, right? So because we're going to have, what does DeMartini said? I didn't like being sad, so I'm not, I try to, however he words it, I'm not happy. I mean, he just tries to be balanced all the time, but he does laugh. He's very funny. But if you feel safe to live your highest priorities, I think that is gold, because we're only loyal to our highest priority, whether that be your partner, your learning, your connection with other people, your business, whatever that looks like. You can then, by understanding that is where you find your authenticity and your power, and you can link everything else to it. And I think there's a lot to be said for, companies, for the management and the hierarchies there to understand that, but also allow their employees to understand that too, and to well, it's about employing the right people as well, but because if you can understand why you do what you do, that's just mind-blowing. And because that's why people feel like they're just
because if you like, what does society tell us? We should all we should always put our kids first, and then our partner, and then our career. Or I don't even know how we're supposed to prioritize things now. But you know what? For most people, that's not the case.
A
lot of people will put their, making money or work or something like that first. They might have kids like fourth, whatever it is. And like, I might get attacked for saying that. People will be attacked for that. Like, you should always put your family first, right?
Family first.
And this is not saying that your family is not extremely important.
Not at all.
But if you want the best relationship and you want the best for your family, for example, you need to accept the fact that maybe you really love work and you prioritize work on top.
You
So if you can,
prioritize. It's the priorities, isn't it? It's not like, that's the key word.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that, if your kid's sick, you're not going to stay home. That doesn't mean that, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to go to work when your wife's having a baby. It just means that, this is how I'm going to design my day.
Yes.
Because this is my priority, in my true priority.
In that moment.
And therefore, in the moment, right. So therefore, if I can just get this done, which is to do with work, then I can be fully present with my family.
Yes.
Instead of lying to myself saying, no, family's more important. And then in the back of your mind, you're trying to get back to work because that's your true priority.
Yeah. I did have a mentor that said to me, oh, my family's my highest value. And I went, no, I'm sorry. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, because you're at work all day and then you get home and you work again. So if your family was a high priority, you would get home and spend all that time with your family. Our actions, say what's important to us, what our priority is, not what we say. It's what, our actions. So it was really interesting. And that doesn't, again, like you said, doesn't take away from the fact that you love your family, and something may happen and your priorities may change to be the family or to be, mine changed when I had grandchildren. Like my kids were probably seventh at one stage. It doesn't mean I didn't love them, but I realized the voids from our past become our priorities. And that's also power by knowing that. Really, really powerful. So, because that explains why we do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the things that we intrinsically consider the most important.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what creates so much abrasion in people's lives and in their minds, I believe, is when they've got their true priorities, their true intrinsic priorities in one order, and then what they're trying to prioritize things differently.
What they've been told should be their priorities.
Shoulds. So they're trying to prioritize their family first. Intrinsically, they really want to prioritize work first, and this is just an example. So they're essentially going to unconsciously sabotage that time with their family because they're unconscious and they're intrinsically just trying to get back to work until they can fill that cup.
Yeah.
Cup's full for now, fully present with the family.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I love that. And we could go for days. We could just I'd get another drink of water and we could go for days. But I feel like we may be overloading. And that's okay because there can be a part two. But oh my gosh, I just lost what I was going to say. I believe a lot of people out there, and this is another thing that I believe may be contributing to our mental health issues or challenges or however we want to label it, is that we're just not honest with ourselves. Because our families should be first or this, and then we'll have a fight with our partner or our kids because that will be the sabotage that gets us back into our values. I don't have to do that now. But how many people are brave enough to go, oh my God, I manifested this fight with my partner or the kids, so I didn't have to do that, so I could just get back to work. Or I could just go and do something, like blah, blah, whatever it might be. And I do hear it and I chuckle. And when I do that, and when I've done that in the past, I'm like, oh my gosh, right. Just be true.
You take responsibility.
Take responsibility. Yeah. And you don't have to cause a fight or whatever. But, but it wasn't my fault we had that. That's another interesting thing. I just, not my fault, but it's your response. It's not your fault. It's your responsibility. So I'm really challenged with that actual saying as well, because
it shouldn't have happened. Deal with it.
Because it happened, because it needed to happen, because that's how it happened.
Yeah.
Because that's what was meant to happen. Whew. Oh my God. Well, again, we could go for days, but I feel that we've definitely covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. It's so good. Oh my God. I love getting my hands dirty and like getting in the guts of things, because I believe this is how we're going to, you know, like it's almost like brainstorming, like, you know, like let's go where we need to go to brainstorm to find out which avenue we may need to take. And that might work for a little bit, but then it might not. So what next? Because we find new information out about, you know, the mind or the whatever that can lead us down another rabbit hole. So yeah.
I do just want to quickly say one thing that I notice a
Please
lot,
do.
right,
Yes, please do.
us men and especially tradies.
Love it.
What I was saying at one point there was how much we like to feel capable, and we like to be seen to be capable and
Yep.
proficient, and yeah, I think they're the right words. So when it comes to learning something new or accepting being wrong, or even how hard is it to take a good idea from an apprentice, right? When an apprentice comes up with a good idea, we always go, oh, that's a shit idea, and then we quickly go and implement it, right? It's so hard to do. And I think just if we can just change that mindset to be able to show how capable we are of learning,
Yeah.
how capable we are of saying, wow, I didn't know that. That's something new.
Yeah.
And how capable we are of changing our mindset and changing our perception, and
Yes.
having that humility to say, cool, that's something new.
Wow.
I was wrong.
Let's give that a crack or whatever. It just, and I know this is what I mean. It reminded me of my partner. He said, I don't know why you've got to keep, this is a while ago, quite a while ago, keep doing these courses and this stuff. And I go, because I love learning. You know, I didn't want to get into that. Well, that was a void because I thought I was dumb when I was littler and I was shut down and blah, 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 you know, without going that deep. It was like, because I love to learn new things. And the more we know, the more we realize we don't know. And I just, you know, I can't get enough. And, you know, and there's drawbacks and advantages to that. And then, and I love how the universe works, right? But because just prior to that question being asked, like a couple of weeks before, he said he's concretes, and he said, oh, you know, it would be pretty cool to go down to Sydney and have a couple of days with blah, blah. He's another concreter, and just see how they do things. And I went, oh, yeah, you know, and we were talking, you know, like we're not young. And so when he challenged me with that question, I said, remember when you said you wouldn't mind to go and hang out with that crew for a couple of days and just to see how those other blokes that are similar ages do it, you know, like, because I might learn some new tricks. I went,
That's
thank
it.
you. Thank you. You know, like, does it have to be any other words spoken? And I could see the cogs clicking over like, yeah, I get it. I get it. You know, so yeah, it's
you know
cool.
what, like he'll probably find ways to enjoy his job better. He'll probably find ways to be more efficient, more proficient, and just enjoy the day. And like, isn't that what we're going to get from addressing our issues and improving our mental health and that our mental state? Is we just enjoy every day way more.
Yeah, by being open-minded. You know, because we don't know everything, and our you know, our juniors know, you know, they're our greatest teachers really most of the time. When I say juniors, being our children or those apprentices coming up, you know, like, you know, just give them an opportunity to be heard and seen. Maybe
and watch them.
There's a key there too.
Watch them engage and learn and grow so much faster and so much more because they've got the space to do so.
Yeah. And there becomes the great thinkers because they're not shut in a box.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're onto something there. All right, Shane, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been super powerful, insightful, to, you know, to go over and go where we went today. It's been super cool. So thank you so much for your time. And
good, very enjoyable.
Yeah, it has been. It's been great. So I hope everyone who gets to listen to this or hear this, see this, enjoys it as much as we enjoyed chewing the fat.
Cool. So, thanks a lot. Thanks for all of that.
Thanks.
It was great.
Thanks, Shane. It's awesome. Okay.